The stars looked peaceful from Earth. Humans went about their lives unaware that death was traveling toward them at impossible speeds. Somewhere beyond the edge of their solar system, a fleet of warships moved through the darkness. The Vrexian Dominion had marked Earth for conquest, and in 30 days, humanity would learn they were not alone in the universe. Dr. Sarah Chen sat in the observation room of the Yuan Wang Deep Space Monitoring Station, 300 kilometers from the nearest town in the Gobi Desert. The facility was small, underfunded, and largely ignored by the scientific community. Sarah preferred it that way. She could work without interruption, studying the signals that everyone else called noise. For 6 months, she had been tracking something strange, a pattern buried in cosmic radiation, repeating every 47 hours. It was not natural. It was not random. It was a message, or the ghost of one, echoing through space from somewhere impossibly far away. Still chasing phantoms? Her colleague, Dr. James Rodriguez, stood in the doorway with 2 cups of coffee. He handed her one and sat down beside her workstation. The screen showed waves of data that meant nothing to most people. "It's not a phantom," Sarah said, pulling up a new analysis. "Look at this. The pattern has structure, mathematical structure." James leaned forward, squinting at the display. "Sarah, we've been over this. It could be a pulsar. It could be interference from satellites. It could be. It's none of those things." Sarah's voice was firm. She had run every test, eliminated every natural explanation. "This is artificial. Someone sent this message, and it's old. Really old," James sighed. He was a good friend, but he did not believe her. Nobody did. The scientific journals had rejected her papers. The funding committees ignored her requests. In the academic world, Sarah Chen had become a joke. The conspiracy theorists chasing alien signals in the desert. "Just promise me you'll submit something more conventional for the next conference," James said. "You're a brilliant scientist. Don't throw away your career on this." After he left, Sarah returned to her work. She did not care about conferences or careers anymore. She cared about the truth, and the truth was hiding in the data. 3 days later, everything changed. Sarah had expanded her search parameters, scanning asteroid belt survey data from mining probes. Most asteroids were just rock and ice, but some had anomalies, metallic structures that should not exist, chambers carved into stone billions of years old. One probe had found something in a dead asteroid called 2034. Kale 7, the mining company, had flagged it as archaeological interference and moved on, but they had uploaded the scans to the public database, and Sarah had found them. The structure inside the asteroid was a data cache. Ancient technology, still functional after unimaginable time. The probe's instruments had activated it accidentally, and it had transmitted a burst of information before going silent again. Sarah worked for 72 hours straight, barely sleeping, surviving on coffee and instant noodles. She built a decryption algorithm based on universal mathematical constants. Slowly, fragments of the message emerged. The first thing she translated made her hands shake. Genetic markers, DNA sequences, and they matched human DNA. Sarah ran the comparison 17 times. There was no mistake. The alien data cache contained information about humans, not observations of humans, but blueprints, design specifications. As if someone had built humanity the way engineers built machines. The next fragment was worse. It contained a word, repeated thousands of times in different contexts. Sarah's translation software struggled with it, offering multiple possibilities. The remnants, the survivors, the sleeping ones. And another word, always appearing nearby. Architects. Sarah dug deeper. The cache contained historical records fragmented and corrupted by time, but readable. She pieced together a story that should not be possible. 50,000 years ago, the galaxy was ruled by a race called the Architects. They were not conquerors in the traditional sense. They were builders, shapers of worlds and species. They created servants and soldiers, modified planets to suit their needs, and enforced their will across 10,000 star systems. Then they vanished. Every architect disappeared within a single generation, leaving behind empty cities, dormant machines, and confused servant races who suddenly found themselves free. The galaxy had spent 50 millennia trying to forget the architects. They destroyed the ancient technology, erased the records, and built new civilizations on the promise that the architects would never return. But the data cache told a different story. The architects had not died. They had hidden themselves. Sarah found the final piece at dawn on the 4th day. Her eyes were burning, her head pounding, but she read the translated text 3 times to be certain. Genetic reset initiated. Subject species architects. De-evolution process complete. Subjects relocated to Preservation World Sector 779. Third planet. Memory suppression active. Emergency recall protocol embedded. Duration, 50,000 cycles. Status, sleeping. Sector 7-79, third planet. That was Earth. Sarah stood up so fast her chair fell over. Her heart hammered in her chest. She read the message again, looking for any other interpretation. There was none. Humans were not a natural species that evolved on Earth. Humans were architects, deliberately stripped of their knowledge and power, hidden away on a remote planet waiting. Waiting for what? Sarah's computer beeped. A new alert from the Deep Space Monitoring Network. Multiple objects detected beyond the Kuiper Belt, moving toward the inner solar system at relativistic speeds. Configuration consistent with artificial structures. A fleet of ships, and they were coming to Earth. Sarah's hands went cold. The Vrexian Dominion had found humanity, and they had no idea what humans really were. Sarah spent the next week trying to warn anyone who would listen. She sent her findings to every government agency, every military organization, every news outlet she could find. The responses were all the same. Silence, polite dismissals, or accusations of fabricating data. The fleet was still coming. Sarah's monitoring equipment tracked them as they crossed the outer solar system. 27 massive ships, each 1 kilometers long. They would reach Earth in 23 days. Nobody believed her about the ships either. When she called the Pentagon, they told her their own satellites showed nothing unusual. When she contacted the United Nations, they thanked her for her concern and asked her to submit a formal report through proper channels. The proper channels would take months. Sarah realized she was alone. Whatever happened next, she would have to face it herself. She turned her attention back to the data cache. If humans were really the descendants of the architects, there had to be more evidence. More facilities. More technology. The architects would not have hidden themselves without leaving a way to wake up. She searched through decades of space exploration data. Mars missions, asteroid surveys, probe observations of the outer planets. She was looking for anomalies, structures that did not match natural formations. She found it on Mars. The Olympus Mons research station had reported a magnetic anomaly in 2031, buried 3 kilometers beneath the extinct volcano. The investigation team had drilled down, found nothing but solid rock, and abandoned the project. But Sarah noticed something in their geological scans. The rock had a regular structure, too perfect to be natural. It was not rock at all. It was a wall, designed to look like rock. Sarah needed to get to Mars. She needed to see what was hidden under Olympus Mons. But she had no authority, no funding, and no time. The fleet would arrive before she could even file the paperwork for a Mars mission. Then she remembered Dr. Chen Wei, her uncle who worked for the China National Space Administration. He was the director of the Tianwen-7 Mars mission, currently in orbit around the red planet with a crew of 6. She called him at 3 in the morning, Beijing time. Uncle Wei, I need a favor, a big one. Sarah, do you know what time it is? I need you to send the Tianwen-7 crew to investigate something under Olympus Mons. I'll send you the coordinates. It's urgent. Life or death urgent. There was a long pause. Are you in trouble? The whole planet is in trouble. Please, Uncle Wei, trust me. Another pause. Then send me the data. I will see what I can do. 5 days later, Sarah received an encrypted message. The Tianwen-7 crew had drilled into the anomaly and found a chamber. It was filled with technology that still worked after thousands of centuries. And there was something else. A communication system, vastly more powerful than anything humans had built. The crew had also found bodies. Not human bodies, but close. Tall, elegant, with bone structure similar to humans, but different in subtle ways. The architects frozen in some kind of stasis. Long dead, but the technology was alive. Sarah booked a flight to Beijing, then a shuttle to the Chinese space station, then a transfer ship to Mars. The journey took 11 days. The fleet was now 12 days from Earth. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, Commander Zalthos of the Vrexian Dominion stood on the bridge of the warship Eternal Triumph. The invasion fleet had been traveling for 3 months, and they were almost at their destination. Zalthos reviewed the target assessment one more time. Species designation, human. Technology level: primitive. Nuclear fission, basic spaceflight, no energy shields, no particle weapons. The conquest would take less than a day. After that, Earth's resources would fuel the Dominion's expansion for the next century. Commander, we are receiving a priority transmission from the homeworld, his communications officer announced. Jalthos opened the channel. The face of High Admiral Corvin appeared, his expression grim. Commander, delay your approach. Do not engage the target until further notice. Jalthos felt his chest tighten. A delay? The fleet was hours from striking range. High Admiral, may I ask why? The Council of Elders has concerns. Old concerns. I cannot say more on an open channel. Hold your position. We will send instructions soon. The transmission ended. Jalthos stared at the empty screen, confused and frustrated. What concerns could possibly justify stopping an invasion at the last moment? On Mars, Sarah entered the ancient chamber beneath Olympus Mons. The Tianwen 7 crew had cleared a path, and they waited nervously as she approached the central platform. The chamber was vast, carved from solid rock by technology that made human engineering look like children's toys. Machines lined the walls humming with power. Holographic displays flickered in the air, showing star maps and genetic diagrams, and in the center a communication array. Sarah recognized its design from the data cache. It was a quantum entanglement transmitter, capable of sending messages instantly across any distance. She approached the control panel. It was designed for hands larger than hers, but it responded to her touch. The display changed to show text in a language she had never seen before. But as she watched, the text shifted, rearranged itself, became English. Identity confirmed. Genetic markers match archive. Welcome, architect. Sarah's breath caught. She was not just descended from the architects. According to this machine, she was an architect. A message appeared on the display. Emergency recall protocol available. Activate? Sarah's finger hovered over the control. She did not know what the protocol would do. Wake up the other descendants? Reactivate ancient weapons? She needed more information first. She navigated through the system, searching for historical records. The facility's database was enormous, containing 50,000 years of stored knowledge. She found military records, technical specifications, and something else, a secret history. The architects had not vanished mysteriously. They had made a choice. Their empire had grown too large, too cruel. They had become monsters and they knew it. So the architects' greatest scientists had designed a solution. They would erase themselves, reduce themselves to primitives and hide on a forgotten world. They would sleep for 50 millennia, and when they woke, they would have a chance to start over, to become something better than what they had been. Sarah understood now. The recall protocol was not meant for war. It was meant for warning, a way to tell the galaxy, we are still here, and you should remember why you feared us. Outside the chamber, alarms began to sound. The Tianwen 7 crew was shouting in Mandarin. Sarah ran to the entrance and looked at their monitoring equipment. The fleet had entered orbit around Earth. Sarah ran back to the communication array. Her hands were shaking, but her mind was clear. The Vrexian fleet had arrived early. They were in orbit around Earth right now, and humanity had no way to fight them. Governments were probably panicking, militaries scrambling, but nothing humans had built could stop an interstellar invasion force. She had one option left: the truth. Sarah accessed the communication array's control system. The interface was complex, designed for operators who understood technology far beyond human science. But the machine seemed to be helping her, simplifying the controls, translating instructions into concepts she could understand. Warning, the display showed. Quantum entanglement broadcast will reach all networked systems across the galactic sector. Transmission cannot be recalled. Proceed. Sarah's finger hovered over the confirmation control. This was it. Once she sent the message, there would be no taking it back. The entire galaxy would know that humans were the descendants of the architects. But what choice did she have? Let the Vrexians destroy Earth without even trying to stop them? She pressed the control. The chamber filled with light. Energy surged through the ancient machines, building to levels that made the air crackle. The holographic displays multiplied, showing connection points spreading across a map of the galaxy like wildfire. Sarah stood at the central platform and spoke. The machine translated her words into the architect's language, encoding them with genetic data, historical records, and activation codes that would wake up every dormant architect installation in the galaxy. My name is Sarah Chen. I am human. I am speaking to you from Mars in the Sol system. You know this system. You have marked it for conquest, but you need to know what we are. She uploaded the genetic data, the comparisons between human DNA and architect DNA. The match was perfect. Not similar, not related, but identical. Humans were architects, de-evolved and hidden, sleeping for 50,000 years. You built your civilizations on our ruins. You destroyed our technology because you were afraid of us. You taught your children that the architects were gone forever, but you were wrong. Sarah pulled up the historical records, showing the architects' empire at its height. Worlds reshaped, species modified, armies that could shatter planets. The galaxy had been theirs, and no one had been strong enough to stop them. We did not know who we were. We thought we evolved naturally on Earth. We thought we were alone. But now we remember, and we are waking up. She sent the activation codes. Across the galaxy on 1,000 conquered worlds, buried architect facilities began to power on. Weapon systems came online. War machines that had slept for millennia opened their sensors and recognized the genetic signature of their masters. On Earth, in the Sahara Desert, sand began to shift as something enormous stirred beneath it. In the Pacific Ocean, a structure the size of a city rose from the deep, shedding water and rust. In orbit around Jupiter, a derelict ship that astronomers had thought was an asteroid suddenly lit up with power. Sarah recorded herself standing before the communication array, human but standing where an architect should stand, commanding technology that responded to her presence. She made sure the message showed everything: the genetic proof, the ancient facilities, the awakening machines. This is our galaxy too. We built it once. We can build it again, or we can destroy it. The choice is yours. She ended the transmission and collapsed into the nearest chair. Her whole body was shaking. What had she done? She had just threatened the entire galaxy. She had claimed ownership of weapons that could end civilizations, and she had done it in humanity's name, without permission, without authority. The Tianwen 7 crew stared at her in shock. One of them, Mission Commander Liu, approached carefully. "Dr. Chen, what did you just do?" "I saved us," Sarah whispered. "Or I doomed us. I don't know which." On the bridge of the Eternal Triumph, chaos erupted. Every display flashed with emergency alerts. The communication system was being overwhelmed by an incoming transmission, broadcasting on every frequency simultaneously. Commander Jalthos watched in horror as the message played. A human woman, standing in an architect facility, speaking words that should be impossible. Genetic data scrolled across his screens and his ship's computer confirmed it. Humans were architects. The bridge crew began talking all at once, their voices rising in panic. Jalthos silenced them with a gesture. "Tactical status report. Are the architect installations really activating?" His tactical officer's hands shook as she worked her console. "Yes, Commander. We are detecting power surges across the sector. Installations on 17 conquered worlds are coming online. The signatures match architect technology." Jalthos felt his blood turn cold. The Vrexian Dominion had been built on the ruins of the architect empire. Every Vrexian child learned the stories. The architects had enslaved their ancestors for 3,000 years, using them as soldiers and servants. When the architects vanished, the Vrexians had taken their technology and built their own empire, swearing that they would never be slaves again. And now the architects were back. "Commander, we are receiving another transmission from the homeworld. It's the Emperor himself." The Emperor's face appeared on the screen. He was old, his scales graying, his eyes filled with fear. "Commander Jalthos, you will withdraw from the Sol system immediately. You will not engage the humans. You will not provoke them in any way. Do you understand?" "Your Majesty, we outnumber them. They have no fleet, no weapons that can— They are architects." The Emperor's voice shook with rage and terror. "Our ancestors spent 3 millennia as their slaves. They shaped our bodies, modified our minds, used us to fight their wars. And then one day, for reasons we never understood, they disappeared. We thought they were dead. We thought we were finally free." The Emperor leaned closer to the camera. "If the architects have returned, we cannot fight them. No one can. The only reason our ancestors survived was because the architects chose to leave. If they choose to return, we are finished." The transmission ended. Jalthos stood frozen, his mind racing. Withdraw after coming so far? after preparing for months to conquer a primitive world? But he remembered the lessons from the Imperial Academy. The architects had never been defeated in battle. They had simply vanished, and the technology they left behind had powered every major civilization in the galaxy for 50,000 years. Helm, set course away from the Sol system. All ships, full retreat. The fleet began to turn. On Earth, humans watched in confusion as the alien warships that had appeared in their skies suddenly departed, accelerating away, as if fleeing from something terrible. On Mars, Sarah watched the tactical display. The Vrexian fleet was leaving. Her gamble had worked. The galaxy believed that humanity was the second coming of the architects, and they were too afraid to test the truth. But Sarah knew the truth. Humans were not the architects, not really. They were the descendants of the architects, 50,000 years removed, stripped of their knowledge and power. The ancient facilities were waking up, yes, but humans did not know how to use them. The weapons were online, but humans did not know how to fire them. She had bought Earth time with a bluff. And now the whole galaxy was watching, waiting to see what humanity would do next. The message spread across the galaxy faster than light. Within hours, every major civilization had seen it. Within days, the political landscape of the known universe had changed completely. Sarah remained on Mars, working with the Chinese crew to document everything in the architect facility. But she was not alone anymore. Every space agency on Earth sent teams. Scientists, linguists, military advisors, and politicians crowded into shuttles and rushed to Mars to see the proof for themselves. Earth's governments finally believed her. They had no choice. The evidence was everywhere. In the Sahara Desert, military drones circled a massive structure that had emerged from beneath the sand. It was a pyramid, but not like the ancient Egyptian ones. This pyramid was black, perfectly smooth, and 3 times the size of the Great Pyramid of Giza. It hummed with power, and anyone who came within 100 meters felt a strange sensation in their bones, as if the structure was scanning them. The pyramid had opened its entrance for the first humans who approached. Inside, they found weapons, machines, and a command center that responded to human DNA. A soldier from the Moroccan army had accidentally activated a display, and it had shown him a holographic interface in Arabic. The machine had read his mind and adapted to him. Similar discoveries were happening around the world. An architect installation in the Mariana Trench, another beneath the ice in Antarctica, an orbital platform that had been hiding behind the moon for millennia. Humanity had been living on an architect world without knowing it. But the most shocking discovery came from hospitals and research centers. Doctors examining human volunteers found something strange in their genetic code, dormant sequences that should not be there waiting to activate. When exposed to energy from the architect facilities, these sequences began to wake up. Some humans started remembering things they had never learned. A physicist in Mumbai suddenly understood quantum mechanics at a level that should take decades of study. A mechanic in Detroit looked at an architect machine and instinctively knew how to repair it. A child in Tokyo drew star maps showing systems that human telescopes had not yet discovered. The genetic memory was returning. Slowly in fragments, but it was there. Humans were beginning to remember what the architects had known. Sarah watched these reports with mixed feelings. She had wanted to save humanity, but she had not expected this. She had not expected humans to change. On the 7th day after the message, representatives from 3 alien civilizations arrived at Mars. They came in small ships broadcasting peaceful intentions, requesting permission to speak with humanity's leaders. Earth's government scrambled to organize a response. The United Nations established an emergency contact team. Sarah was asked to be part of it, since she was the one who had started all of this. The meeting took place in the architect facility on Mars. Sarah stood with diplomats from 12 countries, facing 3 alien species who looked terrified. The first was a Vrexian, but not Commander Jalthos. This was Ambassador Krell, an older individual who wore decorative scales and carried no weapons. The second was a Threne, a floating species that looked like jellyfish made of light. The third was a Korthan, an insect-like species with 4 arms and compound eyes. Ambassador Krell spoke first, his translator device rendering his words into English. Honored architects, we come seeking peace. The Vrexian Dominion acknowledges your return and wishes to negotiate terms for our continued existence. Sarah glanced at the human diplomats. They looked confused. She stepped forward. We are not the architects. We are their descendants. We did not know what we were until a week ago. The aliens exchanged looks. The Threen's color shifted from blue to a pale green, which Sarah's briefing document said meant surprise. You did not know? The Threen asked, its voice musical and strange. Then the activation was accidental? Not accidental, Sarah said. We sent the message to protect ourselves. Your fleet was coming to invade Earth. Ambassador Krell's scales darkened with what Sarah assumed was embarrassment. We did not know. If we had known what you were, we never would have approached your system. The Vrexian Dominion has many crimes in its history, but we are not foolish enough to attack architects. The Korthan ambassador clicked its mandibles together. The question is not what you were. The question is what you will become. The architects ruled the galaxy with absolute power. They reshaped worlds and species to suit their purposes. They were not kind masters. Will you follow their path? It was a fair question. Sarah looked at the ancient machines surrounding them, the technology that could destroy planets. She thought about the humans who were starting to remember, to change, to become something more than they had been. We don't know, Sarah said honestly, but we know what the architects did at the end. They chose to erase themselves rather than continue being what they were. That has to mean something. The meeting continued for hours. The aliens presented their demands, their fears, their hopes. They wanted assurances. They wanted guarantees. They wanted to know that humans would not rebuild the architect empire. But Sarah and the human diplomats could not give those guarantees. How could they? Humanity was changing too fast. Ancient weapons were waking up. Genetic memories were surfacing. Facilities across the galaxy were responding to human DNA. On the 5th day of negotiations, everything changed again. A massive ship appeared at the edge of the solar system. It was larger than the Vrexian fleet combined, a vessel so enormous that it distorted space around it. It was an architect dreadnought, one of the legendary war machines that had conquered the galaxy, and it was responding to human presence. Sarah received an emergency call. The dreadnought had sent a message addressed to her specifically. She rushed to the communications center, her heart pounding. The message was simple. Primary command authorization required. Genetic signature detected. Sarah Chen, designation architect. Please provide orders. Sarah stared at the screen. The dreadnought was waiting for her orders. Her orders. She could command it to attack the alien delegations. She could command it to conquer worlds. She could rebuild the architect empire with a single word. The human diplomats were arguing behind her. Some wanted to seize the opportunity, to use the dreadnought to establish humanity's dominance. Others wanted to destroy it, to prove that humans were not the architects reborn. Sarah thought about the genetic memory rising in humans across Earth. She thought about the choice the architects had made 50,000 years ago, to erase themselves rather than continue their path of conquest. She accessed the dreadnought's communication system and gave her order. Dreadnought, you will enter orbit around Jupiter. You will remain in standby mode. You will not engage any target unless Earth itself is directly threatened. You will not fire unless humanity faces extinction. Do you understand? Order confirmed. Entering standby mode. The massive ship changed course, moving toward Jupiter. It would wait there, a reminder of what humanity could become, and a promise that humanity would not become it unless absolutely necessary. Sarah turned to face the alien ambassadors. Their expressions showed relief, fear, and something else, hope. We are not the architects, Sarah said. We are something new, and we are still deciding what that means. The news of the dreadnought spread across the galaxy within hours. Sarah's decision to put it in standby rather than use it for conquest had surprised everyone, including the human governments. Some praised her restraint. Others accused her of wasting humanity's greatest advantage. But the decision bought time. Time for humanity to figure out what it wanted to be. 3 weeks after the dreadnought arrived at Jupiter, delegations from 47 different alien civilizations came to the Sol system. Some came to offer tribute. Some came to threaten. Some came simply to witness humanity's next move. Earth's orbit became crowded with alien ships. The United Nations established a neutral zone on the Moon, where representatives could meet without fear. Sarah was asked to lead humanity's delegation. though she protested that she was just a scientist, not a diplomat. "You are the human who spoke for all of us," the UN Secretary General told her. "You sent the message that changed the galaxy. Whether you want it or not, you are humanity's voice in this." The moon-based conference room was filled with aliens of every shape and size. Sarah stood at the center, surrounded by creatures that had evolved on worlds she had never heard of. Some breathed oxygen, some breathed methane. Some had eyes, some had echolocation, some perceived the world through electromagnetic senses. But they all had one thing in common: fear. An ambassador from the Talroth Collective spoke first. The Talroth looked like crabs made of crystal, and their translator gave them a voice like wind chimes. The architects enslaved 43 species during their reign. They modified our genetics without permission, using us as experiments. When they vanished, we destroyed everything they built. We swore we would never allow them to return. And now you are here with their weapons, their technology, and their genetic code. What do you want from us?" Sarah took a breath. She had prepared for this question, but speaking the answer was harder than she had expected. "We want the same thing you wanted when the architects vanished. Freedom. The right to exist without being controlled by others." The architects made a terrible mistake. They thought power gave them the right to reshape the galaxy, but at the end they realized the truth. Power does not give you the right to control others. So they erased themselves. An ambassador from the Vrexian Dominion stood. It was not Ambassador Krell this time, but a younger Vrexian with bright green scales. "Beautiful words, human. But you have activated architect facilities across the galaxy. You have awakened weapons that can destroy stars. You have claimed inheritance of the most powerful technology ever created. How can we trust that you will not use it?" It was the right question. Sarah had been asking herself the same thing. "You can't trust us," Sarah said. "Not yet. We don't even trust ourselves. But we can make you a promise. We will not strike first. We will not invade your worlds. We will not reshape your species or claim dominion over you. The architect installations will remain active as a deterrent, but they will only be used if Earth or humanity is directly attacked." Words. An ambassador from the Gen Hive said. The Gen were collective intelligence, thousands of small creatures that thought as one. The architects made promises too before they enslaved us. Why should we believe you are different? Sarah pulled up a holographic display. It showed Earth from space, beautiful and fragile. Because we know what it is like to be small. 3 weeks ago, we thought we were alone in the universe. We had no idea the galaxy was full of life. We had no idea we were anything special. We were just humans trying to survive on one small planet. She changed the image to show human history, wars, disasters, struggles, and triumphs. We have spent our entire history fighting each other over resources, beliefs, and territory. We have made terrible mistakes. We have hurt each other and ourselves. But we have also learned. We have learned that power without wisdom leads to destruction. We have learned that conquest creates only resentment and rebellion. We have learned that the only lasting peace comes from cooperation, not domination. Another ambassador stood. This one was from a species Sarah did not recognize, something that looked like a floating geometric shape. You speak of cooperation, yet you sent a message that terrified the galaxy. You claimed the architect legacy and awakened weapons that have been sleeping for 50,000 years. Is that cooperation? No, Sarah admitted. That was survival. We were facing extinction, and we had one option left. We took it. But now we are here, talking to you, listening to you, trying to find a way forward together. That is cooperation. The debate continued for days. Some ambassadors demanded that humanity dismantle the architect installations. Others wanted humans to use the installations to enforce peace across the galaxy. Still others proposed isolating Earth, quarantining humanity until they proved they were not a threat. Sarah listened to all of them. She took notes, consulted with human experts, and tried to find common ground. But she knew there was no perfect solution. Trust had to be earned, and that would take time. On the 7th day of the conference, Sarah made her proposal. We proposed the formation of a galactic council. Not a government, but a forum where species can meet as equals, resolve disputes, and share knowledge. Earth will be one member, with one vote, the same as everyone else. We will not claim special privileges because of our connection to the architects. She paused, letting the translation devices work. In exchange, we ask for 2 things. First, that Earth be recognized as an independent world, free from invasion or conquest. Second, that the architect installations be acknowledged as defensive measures, not offensive weapons. They will remain dormant unless humanity is attacked. And if we refuse? The Vrexian ambassador asked. Sarah met his eyes. Then we will defend ourselves. The dreadnought at Jupiter is just one ship. There are hundreds more across the galaxy, waiting to respond to human genetic signatures. We do not want war, but we will not accept slavery or extinction either. The ambassadors talked among themselves. The room filled with sounds, clicks, whistles, electronic buzzes, and languages Sarah's translator could not identify. She waited, her heart pounding. Finally, the Threen ambassador floated forward. Its color had shifted to a warm yellow, which Sarah had learned meant acceptance. The Threen Collective agrees to your proposal. We will join the Galactic Council and recognize Earth's independence. One by one, other ambassadors stood and agreed. Not all of them. Some species refused, vowing to never cooperate with humans. But 41 out of 47 delegations accepted the proposal. It was enough. The Galactic Council was formed that day. Earth took its place as one member among many. And for the first time in 50,000 years, the galaxy had a chance to build something better than empire. 6 months later, Sarah returned to Mars. The Architect facility was now a research center staffed by scientists from Earth and a dozen other species. Humans and aliens worked side by side, studying ancient technology and trying to understand what the architects had really been. Sarah stood in the chamber, where she had sent the message that changed everything. The communication array was silent now, its work done, but Sarah could still feel its power waiting beneath the surface. Commander Liu of the Tianwen 7 mission approached her. He had stayed on Mars to help coordinate the research efforts. Dr. Chen, you have a visitor. Sarah turned to see Ambassador Krell entering the chamber. The old Vrexian looked tired but content. Ambassador, what brings you to Mars? Curiosity, Krell said. I wanted to see the place where everything changed. The place where one human decided the fate of the galaxy. Sarah shook her head. I didn't decide anything. I just sent a message. You sent the right message, Krell said. The architects could have come back as conquerors. Instead, they came back as diplomats. Because of you? Sarah looked at the ancient machines around them. She thought about the genetic memories stirring in humans across Earth, the knowledge slowly returning after 50,000 years. We are not the architects, Sarah said. We are their children. And children have a choice. They can repeat their parents' mistakes or they can do better. Krell's scales brightened with what Sarah had learned was a Vrexian smile. Then perhaps there is hope for all of us. Sarah stood at the viewport looking out at the red Martian landscape. In orbit above, ships from a dozen species traveled peacefully. On Earth, humans and aliens walked the same streets, shared the same laboratories, and worked toward the same goals. The galaxy was still dangerous. There were species that refused to join the Council, regions where war still raged, and ancient threats that even the architects had feared. But for the first time in 50,000 years, there was a real chance for peace. Sarah thought about the architects' final choice, to erase themselves rather than continue their path. She understood that choice now. They had not been running from responsibility. They had been giving their descendants a chance to start fresh, to build something better. Humanity had been given a gift, the power of the architects without their history of conquest. And humanity had chosen to use that power not to dominate but to protect, not to conquer but to cooperate. Sarah did not know if the choice would last. Humans were still learning, still changing, still discovering what it meant to be the children of the galaxy's most powerful civilization. But they were trying, and sometimes trying was enough. She turned away from the viewport and walked toward the research labs. There was work to do, technologies to understand, species to meet, and a galaxy to explore. The architects had left behind questions that would take centuries to answer. But for the first time in her life, Sarah was not working alone. She had a galaxy full of allies, partners, and friends, and that, she thought, was worth more than any ancient weapon.